thank you, everybody, for coming, and we really appreciate the courage you have to show up and the openness you have to listen to what we have to say tonight. And I'm just going to start by telling a little bit about my story and how I came to change my views on this completely. Right after 9/11, I tried everything I could to get out to Ground Zero. I was on a team that we thought they were going to call up, but they didn't, and they ended up calling up a USAR team instead. Anyways, I went out there for the funerals. I helped support however I could. This was there about a month and a half after Ground Zero, and so I was very emotionally attached to it. And when I started, when anyone would talk about it, I couldn't listen. I just didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to consider it. And my lieutenant for years had told me that it looked like, something didn't add up. And I just told him he was crazy. He should leave the country. I'm very patriotic, and I just thought, if you believe that anyone could be responsible for this, you shouldn't be here. And it was, a very narrow-minded view, but that's what it was. And I ended up, can you advance? So I ended up, it was a friend of mine from the military that actually opened my eyes to something else. And one thing led to another, and I kept looking. 9/11 kept coming up. And because it wasn't being shoved down my throat, I decided to look into it a little bit more. And when I did, I knew there was a lot of conspiracy theories out there and a lot of crazy conspiracy theories. And I decided to do my own research. And so I went to the Zacharias Moussaoui exhibit trials. And I wanted to see, this is the U.S. government's evidence on 9/11, basically. And I wanted to see what they had. And I was kind of shocked. I wanted to know, how did they identify the terrorists so quickly? How were they so sure? And so as I started looking, this is what I found. And this is the main evidence that they had. Let me the trigger. It's not working. So this is the main evidence they had. And they, as you can see, this was found during the plane, or after the plane crash. This was found the next day. So you can see they found bandanas, papers, and more passports. You can see these passports. They're pretty well intact. I've been to a lot of fires, and if they're out in a room that's not on fire, we'll find this kind of stuff. But the thing that stuck out to me, and someone else had pointed out, was, well, wait a second. Those passports, those IDs, they were inside either pockets or luggage or inside that plane. Then that plane hit those towers or went into the field or went into the Pentagon, and then they blew up. There were big fireballs we all saw. And then they were found actually on top of the pile. So that stuff started not adding up for me. I was like, well, wait a second. How'd they find it the next day? It should have been either on the ground or burned up or buried in the rubble. So that led to Colonel Nelson. And once I started looking into this, I read his article. And he's a 34-year Air Force crash investigator. And he'd written a pretty amazing article. And he talks about his own experience into 9/11. And what he found was, I asked him...
Trigger words.
There we go. I asked him once I spoke with him in person, or not in person, on the phone. And once I spoke with him, I asked him, I said, when did you first notice something was wrong? And he said, for me, it was the first day. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, what stuck out to you? He said, well, I've been to a lot of crash sites, and I know how they work. And he said, it was the Pentagon. And he said, when I looked at the Pentagon, and here's some pictures of it, he said, what I saw the first day was people picking up debris, and they were removing it as quickly as possible. He said, every crash I've ever been to, it's the MP's job to secure that area, flag it, tag it, take pictures. Nobody touches anything until after the investigators are there. Well, they were cleaning it up before any investigation. The next thing, he said by day 3, he knew something was wrong. And by day 3 is when he said they identified the terrorists. And he said it was because of the same thing that, actually, trigger. Go back. He said it was the same thing that I noticed, was the IDs. He said, there's no way. He said, find those 19 terrorists. He said it would have taken weeks to months to find that kind of evidence, to sort through it, to go through it. And he said to recreate an Air Force or the aircraft crash, he said was impossible. So that really made me start thinking more. And the more I looked into it, the 9/11 Commission themselves, I found out, they doubt their own investigation. And so many people in America believe the 9/11 Commission. That's the people who believe the official story. They still swear by it. Well, I found out the investigators themselves don't. And so you're going to see here, you're going to have to do it for me.
So there are all kinds of reasons.
These
thought
are the 9/11
we were set up to fail. We got started late. We had a very short time frame. Indeed, we had to get it extended. We did not have enough money. They were afraid we were going to hang somebody, that we would point the finger.
Lee and I write in our book that we think the commission in many ways was set up to fail because we had not enough money. We didn't have enough time. We'd been appointed by the most partisan people in Washington.
So then you go to their own website. And
So there are all kinds of...
Their own website. And you look up, actually, they talk here about how much they spent. And the next slide we see, this was the actual from their own website, the 9/11 Commission budget. It started out at $3 million. Congress then gave them an additional $11 million, and the total commission was $15 million. Now, to put that in perspective, you can see that the Columbia Space Shuttle investigation was $175 million. The Challenger investigation was $100. Monica Lewinsky was $30. 9/11 was the greatest crime in U.S. history, and we had the least amount of money going into this investigation, and we still believe that investigation. So then I went to the FBI, and I said, well, they're the lead investigators. What do they say about it? Found out he is on the most wanted list, but what's shocking is he's not on the most wanted list for 9/11. They've been asked about that, and they've said that they don't have enough evidence to accuse him. So this is on, back one. This is on the FBI's most wanted list. Murder of U.S. nationals outside the United States, conspiracy to murder U.S. nationals outside the United States, attack on a federal facility resulting in death. He's also wanted connection with the August 7th, 98 bombings of United States embassies in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and Nairobi, Kenya. These attacks killed over, they never mention 9/11. They never mention the United States. So why, if the FBI doesn't have enough evidence, the 9/11 Commission doesn't believe in their own investigation, we should be looking at this and we should be holding them accountable. And the 9/11 Commission themselves, some of the commissioners have said, it's a national scandal and we need a real investigation. So that's what... Thank you.
Tonight we're going to explore the myths of 9/11. Myth: we can trust our government officials and investigations.
Now this is John Orr. Now this is one of the points we want to make right now is that don't trust us. Don't believe everything we have up here. Obviously, we're not the experts. We're not the investigators, but we're just concerned citizens that are doing something about it. And I want to make the point that even firefighters and investigators nobody can be trusted. We need accountability. We need people to watch over us. I'm not just us, but watch over each other. John Orr was a famous arson investigator, a nationally recognized arson investigator. And when people couldn't figure out fires, they'd come to this guy to find out how they did it. And he actually knew pretty well because he was a convicted serial arsonist himself. He was responsible for hundreds of fires in Southern California, and he's serving multiple life sentences. So if the top arson investigator can do this kind of stuff, why are we trusting all investigators? I'm not saying they're all bad, but we need to question all the time.
And do Americans want a real investigation, another investigation back into 9/11? Well, Time magazine reports that 36% of Americans want another investigation. They say it's not a fringe phenomenon, the 9/11 Truth movement. It's a mainstream political reality that must be dealt with. Another poll in 2007 by Scripps Howard Ohio University finds that 16% of Americans believe that the Twin Towers were actually brought down by explosive-controlled demolition. Well, let's find out before we begin tonight where we are in right here among ourselves. How many of us, I'll ask you 3 questions. How many of us pretty much believe the official account of the events? How many of us are unsure? And how many of us believe that the Twin Towers were brought down by explosive demolition? The official account goes like this. The towers hit the buildings. There was a large explosion. Jet fuel ignited office contents. There was a large fire, and the heat from that fire caused the weakening of the structural steel, and then we have a gravitational collapse all the way down to the ground. How many of us pretty much believe that? Haven't heard too much else. No reason not to doubt it. We're there. Official story, believers. Turn off the house lights all the way if we can. They are. Okay. I'm going to need help. Go like this. If you don't wave your hand, I won't be able to count you. Like this. In the back, I saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. How many of us are unsure? Here to learn more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 34. So there's 34. How many believe the Twin Towers were brought down by explosive-controlled demolition? A lot of the rest of you. We'll count you later. Mark, if you'd be kind enough to get a total count of heads, we'll be able to do some subtraction then. Well, NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, says they found no evidence for explosive-controlled demolition. Later, they acknowledge that they never looked for it. Well, how can you find what you're not looking for? Well, thousands of architects, scientists, engineers, and others looked for it, and it wasn't hard to find. We've been speaking about it for throughout America and 16 countries. We now have over 1,000 signed on to our petition demanding a real investigation. By the way, how many architects do we have here tonight? Raise your hand like this. Wait, back and forth. 1, 2. Just 2 of you? Watch this. 3? Thank you. How many engineers tonight? See how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And how many normal people?
And firefighters.
A lot of normal people.
And firefighters.
How many firefighters do we have tonight, too? Go like this. Yay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got 6. Wonderful. Well, let's...